locked into everything KFAN sports updates, ticket giveaways, and show highlights. Follow at KFAN 1003 on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X today.
Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
We're putting a little spin on Top 5 at 5. So I had this idea, like there are all these little Vikings player stories that I've been so fascinated about, being that my name is Alec Lewis and I cover the team for The Athletic. And so I'm like, how can I fit these guys in a way that's, we're not talking to, you got to make sure we're feeding the beast here on KFAN. So I'm like, you know what? Let's get 5 players who I would like to discuss and just go top 5 at 5 and we'll riff on them. And I don't know if Max knows these guys. Maybe he knows their stories. Maybe he doesn't, but we'll have fun with it. So that was my very creative idea.
Well, listen, Alec, back in the day, today you're going to play the role of the modern day Homer. Back in the day, that's where the phrase comes from, unsung hero. Guys like Homer, they used to tell the tales of the Troy Topplers, the Odysseus's, the Agamemnons of the world. But what about the guy that polished the swords?
Exactly.
What about the guy that rode those big-ass boats? What about a guy, but he was out there kicking ass like the other guys, but he just had a normal name like Jason or something like that? What of the unheralded heroes of the world?
This is for all of you people texting in from from your jobs that never get recognized or noticed.
Right.
That's what this is. The Top 5 at 5 is recognizing the people who deserve some recognition that don't get it. That's what we are here to do. That's really what I love doing most of The Athletic. We talk about the quarterbacks and all this stuff, but there are these people that have phenomenal stories, like the Odysseus, as you just said. So that's what we're here for.
Yes, you're going to be the purple Homer today, Alec Lewis. So tell us the tale of outside linebacker Chaz Chambliss.
What do you know about Chaz Chambliss, Max?
I don't know a whole lot about Chaz Chambliss. Clearly, I don't even know how to pronounce his name.
No, I thought you did a pretty good job.
So tell me about him.
So Chaz Chambliss, for those of you who are unaware, was a member of the 53-man roster in 2025. He was an undrafted player from the University of Georgia who played a little edge defender, a little off-ball linebacker. I'm not going to, the Van Ginkel name comparison is not fair to anybody because no one else is a cyborg like he is. But think of Chaz Chambliss's play style a little in the realm of what Andrew Van Ginkel is capable of. So Chaz Chambliss is in his second year, and one thing I noticed about him throughout his first year, he was the last guy on the practice field every single day. Every single day, he's hitting sleds way after practice on his own by himself. And so I just filed that away in my notebook and in my mind. And now here he arrives for his second season in the NFL. And he looked really good on tape Saturday against the Baltimore Ravens, Chaz Chambliss did. He played a lot of off-ball linebacker. And I'll just say this because I don't want to get in trouble. And after our first segment, I might already be in trouble. But Chaz Chambliss has also delved a little bit in kind of another creative role that they're using him in that I'm not going to reveal here to keep myself at bay. But yeah, Chaz Chambliss, former undrafted player from the University of Georgia. We'll see if he makes the 53. I think right now I would expect him to, but a little under the radar player that Vikings fans and listeners of the Bumper to Bumper program should know.
Wax poetic about the story of Jersey City's own Elijah Williams.
So Elijah Williams, you're going to start to sense a theme. We got another undrafted player from Morgan State University. He came in last year for a tryout with a group of a bunch of defensive tackles. And you know how it goes, Max. Like, I do my job. You get the list. The Vikings try out a lot of players all the time, especially this time of year. And you see all these tryout names. I don't look them all up because I'm probably more lazy than I should be. But I didn't think anything of that tryout. And then it's like Vikings give a training camp opportunity to Elijah Williams, this smaller but quick with twitch interior defender and they just gave him the opportunity. And what did he do with it last year during training camp? He absolutely ran with it. Elijah Williams was so impressive in the preseason that the Vikings couldn't cut him, because had they cut him, he was going to be signed elsewhere. And so then he returns for his second season, and he is an electric personality. He sits in the front row of every team meeting and has from the time he entered this building. And he's done nothing but continue to develop and progress. And so I've got other people around the NFL texting me about Elijah Williams to tell you what he's done in his second season as a pro. So another guy just like Chaz Chambliss, who I think will make the 53-man roster. And I just can't wait to see if he plays more defensive snaps in 2026.
There's a lot of Jacobs, Jakes, Jacobys
Thomases
on this team. Yeah, a lot of Thomases. So it's hard to sort through them all. But there's one that may be standing, a little head and shoulders above the rest. Tell us a little bit about Jacob Thomas.
Yeah, so I don't want to go too far here because I've got a story coming at The Athletic on Thursday about Jacob Thomas. But so he's from Virginia, okay? His father is a special agent at the Pentagon.
Wow.
Okay? He was originally going to go to play quarterback at Richmond University. He ends up deciding, I don't want to go to Richmond and play quarterback. I'm going to go walk on at James Madison to play for this rising coach named Curt Cignetti. And I'm going to play safety at James Madison for Curt Cignetti as a walk-on.
Wow.
Kind of a creative thing, but he's got smart parents, Richard and Geraldine. Richard is, again, a special agent at the Pentagon, so he probably has a reason, Jacob does, to listen to his parents. He walks on at James Madison, and very early on, the James Madison coaching staff, which is a really good coaching staff because they're now at Indiana, and they won the national championship last year, they're like, this guy's got something to him. So Jacob Thomas plays 2 years for James Madison, and Curt Cignetti ends up receiving some defensive snaps. Then Curt Cignetti leaves, and he brings all his guys to Indiana with him. Guess who he didn't bring? Jacob Thomas.
Oh, no.
He's slighted. So then they hire Bob Chesney, a rising star coach. Bob and Jacob sit down. They put him on scholarship. Jacob Thomas does nothing but becomes the best player in the Sun Belt last year. They were in the college football playoff, and yet he still goes undrafted for some reason. And he's done nothing since he arrived in the Vikings building but blow the coaching staff and the front office staff away. It was some savvy scouting by, I believe, one of the Vikings area scouts, Michelle Mankoff, uncovering Jacob Thomas. And he's going to make the 53-man roster, I believe, and potentially contribute as a safety. So pretty damn cool story.
Normally, presidents are people we know plenty about, Alec Lewis, but the people may not know much about El Presidente, Levi Drake Rodriguez.
Levi Drake Rodriguez's story still goes under the radar. He began his college playing career at NAIA Southwest Assembly of God. I'm not kidding.
What?
That's what the school was called.
What the hell is that?
That was a school.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Great job, Max. See, that's why, this is why we got to do this more together. That's just the case. That's just the facts of it. Levi Drake Rodriguez then transferred from Southwest Assembly of God University, SAGU, to Texas A&M Commerce.
What?
Texas A&M Commerce. I promise I'm not making this up. I really wish I was. And Levi Drake Rodriguez impresses so much that he catches the eye of another Vikings area scout, Blaine Gramer. And Blaine vouches for Levi Drake Rodriguez of Texas A&M Commerce. So what do? They draft him in the 7th round. And obviously, Levi Drake Rodriguez has been with this team for some time. He's a fascinating character. I remember talking to one of the coaches at the Hula Bowl where he played with, as a rising senior. He played at the Hula Bowl. Levi Drake Rodriguez did. And apparently he wore a feather in his helmet. I mean, the stories of this guy are beyond belief. But Levi Drake Rodriguez is potentially going to be your starting nose tackle coming from SAGU and Texas A&M Commerce for the Minnesota Vikings in 2026. I don't know what more you can say about the stories that they have within this team, and I'm getting to highlight them, and I'm having a blast doing it.
that one might be might be the top one so far.
Well, he's from Sagoo.
Sagoo.
I mean, does that school even exist?
I don't even know if that's real. Is that like the Donda Academy? Like, is that like a real school? Is that like Bishop Sycamore?
I kid you not. Bishop Sycamore was a phenomenal story.
Oh my God, that's such a great documentary.
I mean, we could go the next hour and 20 minutes on Bishop Sycamore. Great documentary. You're right. But yeah, Levi Drake Rodriguez, what a story.
His name has been almost omnipresent throughout the preseason. He has the sole touchdown for the Purple in 2026, the 2026-2027 season thus far. Tell us about the ever-effusive Miles Price.
Miles Price, I think people forget, was signed as an undrafted free agent out of Indiana with zero expectations. The Vikings didn't plan for him to be the kick returner. They didn't plan for him to be the punt returner. They sure as heck didn't plan for him to be catching one-handed passes in the end zone in preseason games from Carson Wentz. I can tell you that was not written in the cards of what Miles Price would be capable of. But I have to, first of all, credit my colleague Dane Mizutani and Spearfish over at the Minnesota Vikings facility for their belief in Miles Price. I'm not sure I had it. He muffed multiple punt returns last year during training camp at a level that scared me pretty intensely heading into that Monday night game in Chicago. Miles Price was spectacular as a returner, came very close to returning multiple punts and kicks for touchdowns. And then not only does he enter year two with belief as a returner, but he also progresses even further as a pass catcher. And you know this, Max. He's caught everything. And it's not just in the preseason games. Like, this happened in practice early on in training camp. We're like, why is Miles Price catching everything? It's an out route causing him to extend his hands. Catch. It's an over the middle pass that requires him to catch the ball in traffic. Caught. It's a down the seam ball that makes him catch it back over the shoulder. Catch. I mean, it's been highly impressive and very, very cool, I would say, Max, to see, I mean, the arcs of all these guys. But you watch players who work their lives with villages around them to receive these opportunities. And when they receive the opportunities, to see them take advantage of it and have people believe in them and them believe in themselves. Like, it is a really, really cool thing. And I wanted to use this as a chance to be like, again, I hop on Friday with Paul Allen and we'll talk roster, and I do it on my own podcast and I do it in writing. But to be able to hear these stories and then see the joy from the people around them to get to go on these journeys and rides with them, like, that's the coolest part about all this. And if you can't appreciate that and acknowledge it and really, like, not take it for granted, I don't think we're doing the service to what this thing is at its very core. So that's Miles Price. That's Levi Drake Rodriguez, Jacob Thomas, Chaz Chambliss, and Elijah Williams.
And emphasis on joy, that Miles Price video that you talked about before, him talking about Randy Moss being there. I mean, go look it up if you haven't. I think Fox 9 was the one that got the original interview. It is just joy personified, man.
Like, the thing about Miles Price, this might sound crazy, but like, I'm always looking for these little intricacies with all these guys. But like, Miles Price, his eyes get so big when he's when he's happy, when he's catching passes, when he's talking about Randy Moss stealing food off his plate in the meeting room. Right. And like, and again, like, for me to see this guy who, can you imagine, Max, the pressure of you're arriving as an undrafted rookie into this NFL environment with its maximum standard every single day. And to go from like this probably uncomfortable situation, now the comfort of being the life of part of this team and what they're building. Like, again, it puts like, I can't even fake it. Like, it puts a smile on my face to see the path for some of these guys. And I think some of them too, like, it's an inspirational story for, let's say you're driving around listening to KFAN, your son loves football and should he walk on or should he go to college? Like, if he has a belief in himself and you have belief in him or her, in your daughter, what have you, like, I think, I don't know. It's cool to see people follow passions, receive opportunity, and then succeed. So, top 5 at 5. I wanted to have some joy myself, Max. And I feel like we did that, didn't we?
I think so. I'm inspired right now. I'm believing in myself right now.
That's
Alec
what
Lewis. I'm ready to take my shirt off, flex on the people, believe in myself, carry my head a little bit higher. So don't sit behind me because you won't be able to see nothing with my big old head right now.
Listen, it's not, we could talk quarterbacks and JJ McCarthy. There's anxiety with all of it.
But you got to talk about the human element of the game at the same time.
It's Tuesday afternoon, August 25th. It's almost football season. The weather's phenomenal. The food's great in the Twin Cities. I want to be positive here.
Right.
Like, I want to feel good because we should feel good in the neighborhood. All right. I'm
contagious.
I'm about to run through a brick wall. But no, that'll do it for a very fun Top 5 at 5. Thank you, Max, for playing the music and offering some creativity for us. That was a blast. Coming up with an hour and 20 minutes to go on the Bumper to Bumper program at 5:30, we're going to have Johnny Athletic, John Krasinski, back from his exotic location to talk about the new Timberwolves ownership group. And then at 6 o'clock, Courtney Cronin, who I have an immense amount of respect for, covers the Bears for ESPN, is also nationally a talk. I don't know. She does First Take. She's
everything. She hosts Sports Center.
She hosts Sports Center. She's got a radio show.
Incredible.
It's unbelievable. We'll talk to her at 6. Appreciate her making some time for us. But I'm Alec Lewis, in for Dan Barrero on the Fan. Max Fuller producing exceptionally well behind the glass. You're listening to the Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored.
Program. John Krasinski, Johnny Athletic coming up at 5:30. The text line, Max, is getting me. I mean, people are, Alec should talk this loud when he interviews Vikings players. People like the energy and the positivity, Max. Should we just be positive all
the whole time?
There's actually nothing. There's nothing. Yeah, everything's
all good right now. Yeah. We're still 0-0.
Absolutely right.
We still got that little twinkle in our eyes. Even Dolphins fans right now are feeling a little positive. Every fan base, all 32 fan bases around the NFL are feeling positive.
It's unbelievable.
If you're not, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, we got people asking about Jack Strand from Minnesota State Moorhead, who actually looked very, very good for the Atlanta Falcons in the preseason game. But you got that clip from Brian Flores. I want to hear what he's got to say today about the safeties, because I wasn't out there and I need to catch up on my news.
Down is Neo now nursing an injury. I'm just curious how you feel about your safety depth at this point.
Yeah, obviously that was disappointing is not the word. It's Jamal came in and really kind of he made an immediate impact that it's kind of hard to put into words for a guy who was here for such a short period of time. Just from my initial meeting, during the conditioning test, and really obviously the workout, but really kind of spending some time with him during the conditioning test. Just his love for the game, his passion for the game, his football acumen, and then on the field, his playmaking ability, his energy. He brought a lot to, our unit. The experience, the bringing young guys along. Immediately, he's with Orange and Banks and saying, hey, you guys got to be here in the morning to do X, Y, Z, just to kind of get on the routine. So, he's missed, already, which is, it's kind of weird to say that for somebody who wasn't, with us that long. And he was just fantastic for us. And I was already starting to, he had made a few moves, safety, some big nickels, some linebackers. So we were putting some packages together that we've got to save those for someone else now, if it's appropriate. But as far as the safety room, between Telly and Theo, Jacob, Jacoby, got him back this week. We'll see where it is. We're comfortable with that group. Obviously, we've had a lot of snaps out of Theo and Telly. Jay Ward. I always forget Jay Ward. I don't always forget Jay Ward, but I think of him as like a nickel. He's done a great job. He's had a fantastic camp as well. So I think we've got depth. It's a young group after Telly and Theo. I think our guys are really doing well. And so excited for that group, excited to see what they can do. They've each got different skill sets that we'll try to, play to their strengths. And I think they're all doing well.
I think that was telling for Brian Flores in a couple ways. I think one of them was, him forgetting Jay Ward and talking about him like not as a nickel. I don't think that was a slight. I think it's more a kind of description of how he views his strengths as a player, and that is near the line of scrimmage, blitzing off the edge, playing underneath zone. So really the question has been, Max, at the safety position for the Vikings, which I think is an important one as we talk about depth heading into this 2026 season for the team, is like who can play in the deep parts of the field? Because you had Harrison Smith in that role. Obviously, last year it was kind of a hodgepodge group in some form or fashion. Cam Bynum was exceptional in that role 2 years ago. And so if Harrison Smith is still undecided, we'll all find out on Harrison Smith at some point. But if you don't have him, then you're probably asking Josh Metellus, who plays best near the line of scrimmage, to move back in the deep part of the field. And then if Jay Ward does not thrive in the deep part of the field, then you're talking about Theo Jackson. You're talking about Jacob Thomas, Jacoby Thomas. So it was interesting to see him walk through that. And then it was just a reminder in the first part of it of just how brutal that Jamal Adams injury really was. So, the safety spot for me. And then the other one, someone asked on the text line, Max, probably 20 or so minutes ago, like, what free agents would I like? Yeah, here we go. This was Brant 218. Still a lot of interesting names in free agency that the Vikings could add on a 1-year deal for depth. Anyone that you really want to add. So I'd separate this conversation in two separate kind of avenues. The first one is, I think the Vikings need to add at edge rusher for depth. I've said this now for months. You have Andrew Van Ginkel, who you feel great about. Dallas Turner, who we haven't mentioned over the course of this show, but looked really, really good in joint practices, which was an extreme positive.
Besides Miles Price, that was like the most talked about name at joint practices. I saw some, observers say he would have had, if it was real, 5 sacks.
Yeah, there was a day where he was just like in the backfield celebrating every play. You're like, what is happening? Like, are they throwing a party over there? But behind Andrew Van Ginkel and Dallas Turner, then you've got, we just mentioned Chaz Chambliss, who is viable. Tyler Batty, an undrafted free agent, has progressed in his second year. And then Bo Richter, who is more of a special teams candidate and option. But behind the top two guys, you really would love to have some veteran savvy in that room. So it gets me to, okay, who's available? Well, Von Miller's off the board. Jadeveon Clowney's off the board. A lot of those, I would say, higher end names of the depth variety are off the board. You still got guys like Kyle Van Noy, who was with Brian Flores in Miami. You've got guys like Leonard Floyd, who I believe was with Kevin O'Connell in Los Angeles. And then a guy like Hassan Reddick, who was in Tampa most recently. So of the names, those are probably the three most experienced, productive, and dynamic. The question ultimately becomes, what is their asking price? how willing are they going to be more of a backup role behind Dallas Turner? And then how much can they really step in and fit the system, in a quick period of time? But I think, again, we talked a lot about safety over the course of this show. Edge rusher for me is another one defensively that I feel is critical for this defense to go through the duration of a 17-game season, navigate the injuries that are going to happen, and maintain their level of dominance that they've had over the last couple of years.
And it's obviously even more important in the absence of a guy like Jonathan Grenard, who you could rely on last year, who was a top-level guy. And just, like you said, kind of what this whole defense does, putting teams in bad situations on early downs, just kind of containing the run, forcing teams to make those questionable decisions. That all comes down to the defensive line. And obviously this whole thing could be moot if Dallas Turner stays healthy and he's the guy that he was the back half of last season. But we're always going to be worried about depth, especially guys that are just banging into each other like that constantly.
And I'll tell you this, and someone will probably say on the text line, just tell us. You don't have to say he'll tell us this. But Dallas Turner, not only was he very impressive in those joint practices, but I've covered the team long enough, Max, to know that, like, when I talk to certain guys after some of these practices, their reactions speak almost as much as their words, or what it looks like on the field. And the way that teammates were reacting to what Dallas Turner was doing on a down-to-down basis in those joint practices was the most uplifting thing, I think, if you were listening to this, if you're a Vikings fan wanting that defensive line to be really good. But I will say this, too. Like, you mentioned stopping the run, and it's something that it's kind of like, when you talk about offensive linemen, the less you're talking about them, the better of a job they're probably doing. Like, stopping the run is kind of like that. Like, the only time you want to be talking about stopping the run, or you really never want to be talking about stopping the run. Right. You just want to hope that can be stopped so that you can then make plays defensively. And for the most part, since Brian Flores has been here, they have done a really good job stopping the run. Now, there was a sequence last year in the early part of the season in Dublin against the Steelers, in London against the Browns, Week 8 against the Chargers with Kamani Vidal, where they couldn't stop the run, and it really became somewhat of a disaster when you combine that with how difficult they had a time passing the football. And so, like, I do think, although Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave did not have exceptional years last year, when you are transitioning to Jalen Redmond, Levi Drake Rodriguez, Ty Ingram Dawkins, you're going to need that group to be able to hold up at the line of scrimmage to then allow your defense to get into the creative packages against the pass that they're going to want to get in. So it's a thing that I think for you guys listening to this, driving around, the less you're hearing about stopping the run, the better off it probably means the defense is operating throughout the 2026 season. So, good stuff on the defensive line. I'm glad we hit it. I came in wanting to do that, so glad we made that happen. I'm Alec Lewis. I cover the Vikings for The Athletic. When we return from the break, my colleague, John Krasinski, Johnny Athletic, the one and the only, will be with us to talk about the new Timberwolves ownership situation. And I want to ask him about Jonathan Kuminga. So we'll do that when we come back from the break.
Thanks to you, we're helping teachers bring more opportunities, creativity, and learning into their classrooms every day. It's iHeartRadio's Thank a Teacher, powered by Donors Choose. Keep listening as we recognize and reward inspiring educators. Learn more at iHeartRadio.com/teachers.
Welcome back to the Bumper to Bumper program. I'm Alec Lewis. I cover the Vikings for The Athletic. Max Fuller doing a phenomenal job behind the glass producing.
Aww.
And very excited to welcome in our second guest of the program. His name is John Krasinski. You guys probably know him as Johnny Athletic. John, first of all, you're returning from an exotic location. How jealous should we all be from what that was?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but probably really jealous. I mean, we were spent a last week in Maui on Dan Barreiro's recommendation and had just an amazing time. Feet in the beach, a little snorkeling, a little swimming with the kids, did some zip lining with the boy, and just had an amazing time. I'd never been to Hawaii before, and so to be able to kind of unplug for a little bit of time and in what is supposed to be the quiet month of August for the NBA. It hasn't worked out that way this year, but it was just phenomenal, and couldn't recommend it more highly. But definitely also glad to be back home right now. But it was an amazing trip.
Yeah, when the news of Mark Stad becoming the controlling owner, I believe, surfaced Friday. I mean, I don't know if you were there at that time, but I'm thinking, like, is John at the beach with the pina colada in his hand, and he's I guess walk me through the image of what that was.
Yeah, well, first of all, I got word of it, that something was percolating a day or two beforehand, and I looked at my wife as we were getting ready to pack to go to Hawaii and told her I think something might happen. And the look on her face was, what divorce attorney can I find as fast as possible? So there was a little bit of diceiness at first, but one of the good things about being in Hawaii for that episode was that everything happened at 6 a.m. Hawaii time. So the whole family was sleeping, and I was able to kind of get everything done that needed to be done by 9 a.m. Hawaii time, and then we had the whole rest of the day. So that was the silver lining on those clouds that came through, and we were able to handle it. It was unexpected for sure, but not quite as earth-shattering as maybe the Lakers transaction was, or a few other things that we've seen in the business world of sports, but still significant. And thankfully I was able to handle it all just before the kids were up and ready to hop back into the pool.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously have covered the ownership transition extensively and spent ample time with Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez. And so, I mean, really for me, when I saw the news, one of the first things I wonder was I wonder, what John thought hearing it after all of, the transition that's happened in recent years. And I don't know if it's just restructuring, but the new kind of vision that has been laid for the organization. So what did you think when the percolating did start to happen? What was first on your mind thinking through what this transition would be?
Yeah, I do think, Alec, that it was jarring for sure, because here's a guy in Mark Lowry who went to the mattresses to, fight a war with Glenn Taylor in arbitration and in the media as well, in a very ugly sort of long drawn out dispute for control of the Timberwolves and the Lynx. And I think that one of the defining characteristics of Mark Lowry's brief tenure as controlling owner was his enthusiasm for the job. I think that he had always said from the minute he stepped in, even as a limited partner, that this was a dream come true for him, that he wanted to own it for the next 30 years, that he was going to pass it down to his kids, all of these things that, spoke very high-minded about, his longevity that he saw for himself in that spot. And so when he makes the move that he does and steps back and slides down the ladder in terms of the ownership pie, I do think that it was unexpected in that way. That said, with the way that the valuations of franchises are exploding, with kind of what has been clear that he has eventually prioritized this company Wonder that he is heavily invested in taking public. He was not around a whole lot last season. And so it was mostly Alex Rodriguez as the visible partner of the two of them. And so you started to wonder if Mark Lowry, was really just kind of more hell-bent on what he had going with his other company than what he had with the Timberwolves and Lynx. I still think he cares a lot about it. I think he really likes being involved with it, but it's clear that the pecking order has changed for him in terms of priority. And so when it all ultimately did come about, while it was unexpected, now that, kind of I put a bunch of the signs that we saw all of last season kind of together, it's not shocking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, obviously seeing Mark Stead's name, the first thing that struck me was like, I've never heard the name. I really have never heard the name. So what did you know about Mark? And then, I mean, what do you think people need to know about him based on your preliminary conversations?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I knew of him like prior to this. I knew he was a part of the ownership group, but he is an intensely private guy. And for someone who is as high profile in the investment world as he is, with his Dragoneer investment group, with like the $35 billion in capital that he has kind of amassed with that company and with the investments in tech that they have done, a lot of those guys are a lot more out there in the public spectrum. And Mark Stead is just not. He prefers to be very much behind the scenes. I mean, I know that a lot of Wolves fans, when they have kind of watched my coverage and a lot of people's coverage of this new era of ownership group, you've heard about Michael Bloomberg as a limited partner. You've heard about Eric Schmidt from Google as a limited partner. But Mark Stead has always been very much on the quiet and intentionally so. And so, when you try to look for kind of public indications about who he is, about how he operates, there's not a whole lot out there. And so I'm kind of honestly still digging in a little bit to try and get to know who he is, how he moves, sort of what his priorities are, and it, if anything is going to change in a dramatic fashion between he and Mark Lowry. One thing is clear so far is that Alex Rodriguez is even more prominently involved, and like the initial internal messaging is that, hey, this is going to be kind of status quo in terms of vision and in terms of the way that they are going to kind of go about leading this franchise. But we still have a lot to kind of learn about who Mark Stead is, like how visible he plans to be, like what kind of engagement he's going to have directly with Wolves fans. I think that's all still to be determined and discovered here, I would say, over the next probably 6 weeks before training camp opens.
This is probably somewhat of an uninformed question, but like how much between the Lakers circumstance and this one, like how much, if any, or in what way do you feel like there's any interconnectedness between these owners obviously not being the premium chairman governor for the long haul? Like, is there any interconnectedness there, John?
I mean, yeah, there is and there isn't, and I'll start with where there isn't, Alec. First of all, like with the Lakers, Mark Walter, who sold them abruptly to Josh Kushner and Bob Iger, he sold them under legal duress. Like he is facing a federal investigation into kind of his business practices, and it looks like he's in real financial trouble and legal trouble. And so I think he was doing it quickly to try and kind of plug a few holes in the dam that is cracking right now. Mark Lowry, while there have been some questions about his financial wherewithal to run the Timberwolves and the Lynx, it seems like more of his is just like, I just need to put everything I have into this moonshot I'm trying to pull off with Wonder, and that's the thing. But there's nothing legally that we know about that is prompting it. The second part that is different is that the Lakers is a full-sale overhaul of the ownership structure. And so there are brand new owners that are coming in. That means there are much bigger questions about coach, front office, business side, like all of these things, whereas with the Wolves, it is a basically a restructure, reordering of who is in charge and who isn't. And so I think that the practical questions that Wolves fans might have about how the team is run, about who is running it, I think those are less pressing than they are in Lakerland. But where there is a similarity is that with how expensive these teams and these properties are becoming, you are seeing a totally different kind of investor get involved in ownership of teams, and a lot of them are in the private equity tech investment world, and they're increasingly becoming owned by people who do not have local ties or are not just really invested in the team itself, in the community itself. And so I think that it probably begets more of the looking at it as an appreciating asset. And when there's a chance to offload it for a premium price, there's going to be less connection that a lot of these owners have to the team that they're invested in. The days of the mom and pop owner, the Glenn Taylors of the world, owning it for 40 years, 30 years, and it becoming a real public trust, I think are going away a little bit. That doesn't mean that Mark Stead isn't going to own this for a long time or isn't going to be really invested in the Wolves and Lynx and trying to make them champions and things like that. But it's just the dynamics of team ownership is changing so much because it is costing so much to get involved in the business. And so I really do think it's something that all leagues are going to have to grapple with, but it does seem like the NBA right now, at least, is grappling with it a little bit more than others.
Yeah, and then I wonder too, like by extension of that, if you do see more of a proliferation of the private equity investment type or just like that type of business acumen, how does that then affect who is hired to do the jobs underneath them and the processes within that? Like that's where kind of my mind goes, and how does that shift maybe like the internal ramification, not here specifically, but just within these sports leagues and teams elsewhere. So definitely an interesting dynamic. It sounds like, based on what you said earlier, that Alex Rodriguez will still be very present and involved, if not even more so.
Yes, he's actually upped the equity stake that he has in the team. He acquired more of the portion of the team in this transaction. So he is firmly number 2 on the investor list. But because Mark Stead is more of a private person and his wife, Elisa, is going to be the governor of the Timberwolves, but I think they are both generally a more private couple. I think what Wolves fans will see is Alex Rodriguez will be a lot of the public face of this ownership group. He's very comfortable answering questions from the media and just being in the public eye, given his background as a player and his role as an analyst for MLB. And so he does not shy away from the spotlight. He is very comfortable in that setting, and so I do think that you will see him out front a lot, and he is still going to be incredibly involved in all of the decisions that get made, in the hirings and the firings and trades and the business side of things, in the arena and all of that stuff, in the announcers and the TV rights and everything that's involved. I mean, Alex Rodriguez was incredibly prominent with Mark Lowry as his main partner, and I think now will be even more so with Mark Stead, just given the way that Stead, I think, wants to roll with this thing. And so, yeah, I would expect Wolves, if you're a Wolves fan or Lynx fan, that you will just see even more of A-Rod going forward now that this new kind of arrangement is beginning.
Talking to Johnny Athletic, Max Fuller producing, Alec Lewis filling in for Dan Barrero. John, you mentioned it. This is supposed to be the slow time of year, but the Wolves have kept themselves in the headlines all summer. I mean, you got the LaMelo trade, the wooing of LeBron. There's been no shortage of stuff to talk about. I know a lot of fans, including myself, got hype around here seeing the Wolves head to Paris to train with Rudy Gobert a couple weeks ago. There's a Jay-Z Kanye song joke to be made in there somewhere. I won't make it on Bumper to Bumper.
I will not make that one.
You don't want to make it either? I was going to ask if you wanted to. I was going to give you the floor, but I won't make it. I don't think Alec is going to make it either. We kind of saw the leading up to it, and of course the hype video, which Rudy Gobert has like a Martin Scorsese-esque video team apparently. What can you tell us about the trip itself and how that went?
Yeah, I think that, to your point, Max, if you wanted to kind of look back at last season and think about what was missing there, of course the injuries played a huge role in their second round exit, but it was also a team that just didn't quite have that connectedness. Now, I thought they got along well. There was not a lot of sniping or backbiting or fighting behind the scenes. They all liked each other, but they just didn't hang out together. They just didn't spend a lot of time, I think, off the court as much together. And one thing that Anthony Edwards mentioned this summer and even last year a little bit as well is the importance of getting together in the summertime, of spending time together. And so Rudy and Anthony and LaMelo kind of really led the charge of putting this trip together to go to visit Rudy in Paris. Rudy paid for the team's hotels and a lot of the accommodations in Paris and, in his hometown. They worked out a lot together. They went and saw the sites and had some team building activities as well. And is that going to, lead to them winning the championship? No, probably not. But I do think that it is a recognition from the real leaders within this team that they needed to draw closer. And Anthony Edwards, we saw just yesterday or today, was at Jalen Clark's basketball camp and showed up for that. And so this is kind of Ant and Rudy and LaMelo trying to take on more ownership of the team building aspects of the Wolves and try and just establish more cohesion, more chemistry, and more connectivity between everyone. Because I think the hope is that when you build that during the summer, when you work out and you spend time around each other, then in the long dregs of the regular season in the NBA, you're just a little bit tighter, and you want to show up for each other, and you want to make things happen, and you feel a little bit more of a bond together. And so I think that's all really promising and positive. Like that's something that was not there, and is now there. And to see kind of Ant as one of the guys leading that charge, I think is what you want to see from your 25-year-old all-NBA guy who is kind of on the precipice of entering his prime as an NBA player.
Speaking of not slowing down at all, I want to segue to the roster for a second. It feels like there's been some Jonathan Kuminga stuff. I mean, the 4 spot still feels like somewhat of a question. I don't know how much you've heard recently, John, but how realistic does that seem?
I mean, they definitely have had conversations with Kuminga and his agent about selling this opportunity to come to Minnesota to play on a very talented team with a starting spot right there for the taking. And obviously the big thing that they are running into, the roadblock, is money. They only have like $3.6 million to spend on Jonathan Kuminga right now. And so they're saying, hey, if you come here, you win, you get great stats, you have a big role on this team, you can go out in the market next summer and get a much bigger deal and kind of prove yourself to the league that you can be impactful on a winning team, and you're going to get all that opportunity you have in Minnesota. And so they are selling it, and they have a chance. I still would be surprised if Kuminga took that one over the Lakers, who just have a lot more money to offer, even if the pathway to a starting job isn't quite as clear cut. In Lakerland, they just have a lot more money to spend. And so as a young player, Jonathan Kuminga, I think, is valuing finances in this kind of situation a lot, which is understandable. But the Wolves are just trying to really sell that, hey, come here, you have a passing point guard in LaMelo, you have Anthony Edwards to take some pressure off of you, you have a really good defensive team, and this could be really good for you. But it would take a really big sell job to get him. Not out of the realm of possibility, not impossible by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm watching that Lakers situation really closely for him as well.
Last one for John Krasinski, Johnny Athletic, brought to you by RBC Wealth Management. Gonna end you with some Vikings, John. The season isn't that far away, and I hopefully will be sitting next to you in the press box at US Bank Stadium. And we'll, it's always fun, always enjoyable. I mean, what have been your emotions, thoughts heading into this 2026 season? I know that's a general way to put it, but you always have a very sharp way of being able to cut through it all. So what are your emotions with a couple weeks out?
Yeah, I mean, I am in kind of the underwhelmed mode, I would say, right now. And I think that's natural for this point in the training camp preseason, that we just haven't got to see them play a ton, of real meaningful football. I think Kyler Murray has, from what it looks like, taken control of the offense a little more since it was bestowed upon him that he's the starter. That's a good sign. I listened to you earlier in the program talk about the importance of the running game, and I think that's just hugely valuable to have Kevin O'Connell really embracing that. I think, honestly, that probably would have done J.J. McCarthy a lot of good, in this thing. But when I look at it from a big picture perspective, it does look like Kyler has kind of grown in comfort in that role now that he is dubbed the number one guy. And it looks like JJ is struggling a little bit with losing that competition. And that's the biggest thing right now. Now, I still think, Alec, that there's going to be a time where we see J.J. McCarthy on the field this season for the Vikings. I think, just with injuries or whatever, he's going to get another opportunity. And so I just want to see how he handles all of this adversity and watch it closely, because week in and week out, this team is going to be coached really, really well with O'Connell and Flores and just getting this team ready. And now they just have to have a step up in competence in the quarterback spot, and they'll be in the mix. I like Detroit. I like Green Bay a little bit. I like Chicago kind of a lot more. It's going to be a great division, but I just really want to see Kyler Murray show that he has earned this job, and it wasn't just given to him because JJ has been a little bit erratic and Kyler is the veteran. And that's going to be, to me, the key to the whole season here. And I know that's not breaking any news, but that's just my big picture lens on how I see this thing playing out.
Yeah, it's like, why does the quarterback conversation keep coming up? Well,
I know.
For
kind of important.
For requisite reason, I believe. That's John Krasinski, Johnny Athletic. John, thanks for the time as you just arrived back from the vacations. Really appreciate it. Really good stuff from John Krasinski, as always, who I am always grateful and honored to call a colleague of mine, someone who I get to work alongside, someone who I haven't worked alongside, but I have immense respect for from afar, will be with us when we come back from the break. Her name is Courtney Cronin. She does everything for ESPN, and we're going to talk to her about the Bears, about the NFC North. And that's how we'll round out the show today on the Bumper to Bumper program. I'm Alec Lewis, with Max Fuller producing, Courtney Cronin coming up next.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY traffic.
KFAN welcomes some great shows to the Ledge Amphitheater this year, including Blues Traveler and Gin Blossoms on September 12th. Get the complete details on all our upcoming shows on the concert page at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
The Bumper to Bumper program has entered its final hour. I'm Alec Lewis, in for Dan Barrero here on The Fan, with Max Fuller producing. And our final guest is someone I have an immense respect for, considering the amount of time she puts in doing the job. Her name is Courtney Cronin. She used to cover your Minnesota Vikings, and now she covers the Bears in addition to the 7 other jobs that she probably did today. Courtney, first of all, are you enjoying all that you're doing for ESPN?
Oh, of course. Who wouldn't? You get to cover sports for a living. This is the dream. I could be failing as an accountant or something else that I'd be unqualified for. So, no, I love it. And it's been, it's great getting to cover the league at large, getting to do more in the space with, ESPN and a television platform, too. So I've been loving it. It's been fun, and it's so great that, twice a year I get to see all of my friends from Minnesota when the Vikings come down to play in Chicago, where I'm based, and then getting to come back to my old stomping grounds once a year. So I'm very excited for that. Not thrilled that it's the last game of the season because we all know January up there is brutal, but I'm pumped nonetheless.
I want to go Bears-centric for a second to start. How would you describe, the vibes of that camp this year?
Intense. Probably the easiest way to describe it. Ben Johnson set a tone here a year ago with how he's going to conduct practices, and it doesn't let up. These are practices that are long. I mean, hell, we're in day 17 of practice today. It was their 9th padded practice, and they were just starting with 9-on-7 run drills. Those were real physical. They did red zone drills where there were a lot of runs. They are trying to weed out any sort of complacency for a team that won 11 games last year, won the division, and is trying to do so again. But any mention of 2025, any thought that you can rest on what you did last season isn't tolerated here. I mean, even Ben Johnson today. So you know how training camp is. You get people who come in from all, people who are there every single day, but then people, go on training camp tours, or maybe some smaller outlets come up for the first time. 17 practices in and asks a question that should have been asked in April or in March. And Ben Johnson was asked about, last year. He's like, the dreaded phrase last year. He doesn't want to talk about that. He's not going to be rude and not say anything. He's going to answer the question, but you can tell any thought of, you guys were really good last year. You think you're going to be good again? It's almost the opposite of how Sean Payton has approached their camp in Denver. And the reason I bring that up, they win the division. They, are a game away from the Super Bowl. And the way that they talk about their team with the Broncos is that we could be right back at the Super Bowl this year. Ben Johnson refuses to believe that they are the hunted now, that they're still hunting because they haven't arrived. You had 1 year of success. We've seen this with teams that have one good year and then they go right back to being at the bottom of their division. And that's what they're trying to avoid. And I think that that's very indicative of the type of practices they had and just how this team has conditioned itself to try to get back to where they were a year ago with this strength of schedule in the NFL.
I obviously saw the clip of Ben Johnson in the press conference the other day talking about the Caleb Williams decision or lack thereof. He tries the seam ball or wheel route and there was a receiver underneath. And so I mean, part of me is for you, when you hear him react to stuff like that or hold Caleb to the standard that it seems like he's held him to, I mean, what stands out about that relationship most to you?
How honest Ben can be about things that sometimes you'd be like, come on, it's one throw. And even when I saw it being talked about on my network multiple times, it was one throw when the guy was in for one series, one drive that ended in a field goal. It wasn't like he was, in there a whole game and just completely inaccurate and struggling to see, the field. It was one throw, but that's what Ben strives for when he strives for perfection. I think Caleb wouldn't want it any other way. He's going after the smallest of small details. They're overloading his plate in training camp. They want him to fail now so you don't fail in the season. And that's a shared desire by the quarterback too. It's not like, man, this guy's killing me. I mean, he might have felt that last year, and he did say he felt like he was drowning last year, but right now, this is what he wants. He wants to be in a situation where he's challenged because then you're not unprepared for anything that hits you week one of the season, when you see unscouted looks, when you are in a situation where not everything is something you've repped for the better part of a month and a half during training camp and then the weeks of the preseason. So I think that Ben appreciates that Caleb wants to be coached hard because you'll remember when Flus got fired here, the whole idea was, there's no accountability.
Yeah.
I'm doing this on my own. I don't know how to watch film. No one's teaching me the way I want. Like, he wants someone on him 24/7 to get the most out of him. And his head coach is like, all right, cool. Careful what you wish for, because you can't go back and say anything to the contrary now, because I'm giving you exactly the type of coaching that I think is going to get the most out of you, and the type that I think you need, and the type that you say you want.
Yeah. To switch over to the defensive side, I mean, I guess the simple way to ask it is, like, do they have the personnel to be as good as they want to be defensively?
I don't think so right now. I'll be very honest with you about that. They are super banged up in the secondary, and that was supposed to be the strength of this defense. They made decisions in free agency to go after Kobe Bryant, pay him $40 million on a 3-year contract, and then use their first-round draft pick on the guy I thought was going to Minnesota, and Dylan Thieneman.
Yeah.
So you have a secondary that was supposed to be the bread and butter. You had Jalen Johnson coming back, trying to get back to that all-pro level, Tyreek Stevenson in a prove-it year, a contract year, Kyler Gordon, supposed to be past all of the soft tissue things. Well, that's not the case. He's on PUP. Kobe Bryant's out 4 to 6 months. You basically are preparing to not have him at all this season. And then, you know, you start having depth go down. So the philosophy, as Ryan Poles said the night that Dylan Thieneman was drafted, I really like our corners and our safeties. I think our secondaries are strengths. That should allow us to then hold on to the ball, having opposing quarterbacks hold on to the ball a little longer, meaning I don't know if I have the most belief in our pass rush as it currently stands. We'll see. But at least on the back end of the defense that led the league in takeaways last year, they felt comfortable that they'd be able to hold their own. Well, that's a big question mark now. So I would say the answer to your question, Alec, is no, I don't know if they've got enough pieces right now. Pass rush is still a question mark, especially at the edge. I think they've got some good depth on the interior, a lot of rotational pieces. Vikings fans will remember James Lynch. I remember when he was drafted during COVID in the draft that had 15 draft picks. And he's played quite a bit in the NFL. He could make this team. Jordan Vandenberg, their 6th-round pick, is somebody that they love. They brought in Kentavious Street, Neville Gallimore, depth pieces, but good depth that they feel that they can rely on. I still don't know if it's enough. I really don't. I think this is going to be a team that's if they're going to want to win games and get back to the NFC champion, get back to, a division championship, and then try to get past the divisional round to the NFC championship, which would be a step beyond where they were last year. They're going to have to win a lot of games on offense and score a ton of points.
When you do the amount of shows that you do, and I'm sure you get asked about the NFC North as, more broadly all the time, or you have recently, how hard has it been for you to peg what this division is or might be? Because I struggle mightily when presented with those questions.
Yeah, and I think Minnesota is the prime example of we think we know what this team's going to be. Vegas tells us they're going to finish 4th in the NFC, but times do we go into the season being like, well, logically, that team has a quarterback controversy. That team has a guy who was a cast-off somewhere, going to revitalize his career under Kevin O'Connell, but you still have the Lions, the Packers, the Bears, 2 teams that were in the playoffs, 1 team that, lost its coordinators and naturally took a step back. You're going to think, okay, well, of course, Minnesota's the 4th best team in the NFC North. I find it really, really difficult to say that because it never happens the way that you would expect on paper. And that's the coolest thing, that when these things change, when the games are actually played, when you get to see the results that you might not expect. And I'll actually be on the sideline for Vikings Bucks in week 3. And I think it's going to be a huge measuring stick game because the Bucks are supposed to be good. They're supposed to be the division favorites. Well, what about the Saints? What about the Falcons? 2 other teams. And hell, don't forget the Panthers.
Yeah.
Everybody acts like they know exactly what's going to happen just based off last year's results because it doesn't feel that far away. I think that feels very far away, particularly in the NFC North, where every team last year, even the ones that didn't make the playoffs, finished with a winning record. So it's not that bad, or a record above 500. So it's not that bad. And I think it's going to be really hard to project who the 3rd and 4th place teams in this division are. Vegas says that the Bears are going to take a step back because of the 1-score games that they won. I don't disagree. I think that that's a very logical place to start. But The Vikings are an interesting case study in, can Kevin O'Connell do this again? Can he be the quarterback fixer? I know it gets guru whisper. I find those words to be overused, but can he be the quarterback fixer? Kyler Murray comes here. He's cheap. He grew up a Vikings fan. Like, this could be a very good one-year fix if they turn it around, that could then turn into a longer-term solution for a position that they thought they had right a couple of years ago, and they had to start over and pivot quickly once they realized that they didn't.
Yeah. And I led the show essentially talking about, like, I do think for Kevin O'Connell this year we'll have, it'll be a massive referendum on just like the perception of Kevin O'Connell as much as anything, which I find very interesting. Is there any other NFL subject that you're like, that's the one right now I find most fascinating?
You want to talk about what's going on in San Francisco? Because I sure as hell love a soap opera. That thing is wild.
I opened up a can of worms there. Yeah.
You really did. I was about to say the ones that are actually probably more appropriate for radio. I'm really curious to see what the Eagles look like, because every year we do this with Jalen Hurts. He gets a new offensive coordinator. Sometimes it works out for them and they go to the Super Bowl. Then other times they don't win a playoff game, and you've got a receiver who's disgruntled, who wants out of there, who will never say it until the moment actually happens. Can Sean Mannion, who I covered in Minnesota, I remember Matthew Collar and I would always talk about the boots with this guy. We just loved it because he's freaking genius. And backup quarterbacks, as we know, are the best source of any sort of football information. You want to talk about play action, go talk to the backup quarterback. You want to talk about, what it's like in games and you're trying to adjust and kill a play at the line of scrimmage and your headset goes out, like, go talk to a backup quarterback. They've been through everything. And I am really excited to see what he does with this offense, because there were so many issues with it last year, which is sort of surprising. I mean, play calling's hard. It's not. Like, Kevin Petullo was in that system for a real long time, and it showed you it's not just as easy as, hey, be here, know the offense, go call the plays. Like, calling plays is a science. It's not a science. It's an art form, rather. Yeah. Because not everybody who knows the offense can have the right pulse on how to pull the right strings at the right time. So I am very curious to see, is this the team that's going to win the NFC East? Is Washington going to bounce back? Are the Cowboys really as good as they're projected to be with a defense that seems like it's at least half competent, probably a lot more than that than it was under Eberflus? I'm very excited about that.
I'm glad you pivoted very quickly from San Francisco ownership to Eagles scheme. That was very savvy.
I mean, I could have spent 20 minutes on the substation alone.
Sure.
So, you're welcome.
Yeah,
you're welcome. Pecoraro, he should be thanking me that I didn't get his show kicked off the air by going into a diatribe on that. But we just can't get to the season quick enough. That's the issue. Like, we have been talking about these things ad nauseum. I am so ready for real football so we can have results to talk about.
Absolutely. Thanks for hopping on. It was a blast. I'll look forward to seeing you week 3 in Tampa. It should be fun. Keep doing the 900 shows you do today somehow, some way. Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Alec. I'll talk to you.
That is Courtney Cronin of ESPN. She covers the Bears, but she also hosts SportsCenter and is on First Take and all of the other things they have her do. But as sharp as it gets, and I was like a young, covered high school stuff in Alabama when I was really young, and she was in Mississippi doing like awesome video series on Malik Newman. So it's been cool to have her as someone. It's like, oh, that's how hard you have to work to get to these types of jobs. So appreciate Courtney hopping on. And I think we got one segment in the show left.
One more.
Max Fuller producing for I'm Alec Lewis. I cover the Vikings for The Athletic. In for Dan Barrero on the Bumper to Bumper program. And we'll wrap it up. I don't think anybody's rapping, but we'll wrap it up when we come back.
The Fan.
From the 1-800 Ask Gary Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Gens Ryan Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, and Electric.
Someone on the text line, Max, says, you're a natural, you should start a podcast. I mean, that's exceptional. I don't know if they know. They might not know that there is a podcast.
Know that.
Yeah, there is a podcast, The Alec Lewis Show. We're encroaching on our 200th episode. I've talked way more than anybody needs me to talk today and always.
That's good stuff.
But
just had the legendary Mina Kimes.
Yeah, we just had Mina was nice enough for her to spend her time on the Alec Lewis show. But yeah, that's wherever you get your podcast: YouTube, audio, Apple, Spotify. It's been a blast being in today for Mr. Dan Barrero. Max, it's been awesome to begin where we started.
Right.
Really, we got to do it more often. It's too much fun, and I mean when I lose something to talk about, you just pick it up like it's nothing. I mean, it's just nobody would realize that I'm just throwing it all on you. So no, it's been good. It's been good. Vikings wise. I mean, we talked through, I think, all of it. I would say
literally the whole depth chart.
I think we were talking about
53 men.
We were talking about holding for Will Reichard, which I think is relevant. So, it was good stuff. Thank you guys for listening. I'm Alec Lewis. I cover the Vikings for The Athletic. Max Fuller produced the show.
Yes, sir.
In for Dan Barrero and Guardsy. Cannot wait to have them back, probably at the State Fair soon. Enjoy the rest of you guys' weeks. Have a great evening. And, we will talk to you very, very soon.